back to the Modern Prairie Homestead. Today I'm going to be walking you through how to make your first loaf of sourdough bread. I'm about to walk you through the process of starting your starter from scratch all the way to making your first loaf of sourdough bread. If you already have an active starter, go ahead and skip to a minute 18 when I begin the bread making process. If not, tag along and I'll show you just how easy it is to activate your own sourdough starter. To start a starter from scratch, all you need is one jar, something to stir with, some whole wheat flour, and some water. Day 1, all you need to do is combine 1 cup of whole wheat flour with half a cup of water, close your lid, and leave it for 24 hours. Your starter will begin breathing within minutes, so ensure a small crack in your jar is still open. I don't seal mine shut. On day 2, discard half of your starter, add 1 cup of whole wheat flour and half a cup of water, stir and leave for another 24 hours. All you need to do is repeat the steps you did on day 2 on day 3, 4, 5, and 6. And your starter will be activated enough to start the bread making process on day 7. So on the 7th day of your sourdough starter, with the discard, you're going to take 250 grams of that active starter and set it aside. You're going to weigh out 1,000 grams of all-purpose flour or bread flour, 735 grams of water in one jar, and 50 grams of water in another cup. And lastly, 24 grams of salt. Take your bowl with 735 grams of water and add your 250 grams of active starter. Mix together until consistent and milky. Next, add in your 1,000 grams of flour. I find this part easiest to start working your hands in. Incorporate in all of the flour and then continue to knead this until you can form it into somewhat of a loose, sticky ball. We are then going to cover this and leave it at room temperature on the counter for 2 hours. After 2 hours at room temperature, we're going to uncover, add our 24 grams of salt and 50 grams of water. You are then going to knead this for about 5 minutes until all the salt and water are completely combined. I find the easiest way to work with this dough is to bring the outsides in onto itself in the middle. I am now going to cover this and put it in the fridge for a long overnight fermentation. You could absolutely do a same day fermentation on the counter covered for 5 hours. The next day or 5 hours later, uncover your dough, take it out and divide it into 2 even halves. The dough will be very sticky, so absolutely use as much flour as you need in this step. A lot of people are deterred from making sourdough because of how long it takes, but it's really just wait times, it's not that much effort. Once your dough is in 2 equal parts, we are going to start our stretch and fold process, which is exactly what it sounds like. We're going to stretch our dough into one big rectangle. You're then going to take one end and fold it to the middle, take the other end, fold it to the middle, and then you're going to roll it up from the other end. You're going to roll your dough up into itself to start forming a ball. Here's an up close of how you do your stretch and folds with my second loaf. We're then going to build some tension within the middle of our loaf, doing this push and pull motion. During this process, you want the exact bottom of the loaf to stay in the same location, and you're just trying to stretch the dough around the outsides to build some more tension within. Once you feel like your dough is in a nice formed springy ball, we are going to flip it over and put it in our bowl. I used 2 different kinds of bowls today that I had in my kitchen just to show you that you don't need any fancy proofing baskets or anything like that. I used 1 wooden bowl and 1 metal bowl. We are going to cover this and put it in the fridge for 2 hours. After 2 hours, we're going to take our loaves out of the fridge and we're going to repeat the stretch and fold process. This time around, we're going to be a little less aggressive with our stretching and we're a little bit more aggressive with our rolling. Repeat this process with your second loaf and then put them both on the counter. This time we're going to rest these for 20 minutes and then they're going to go in the oven one at a time. After 20 minutes, I remove my first loaf and perform one final stretch and fold. After I roll it up into itself, then I do the last few gentle push and pulls. Then transfer your dough onto your parchment paper, cover with flour, and think about what you're going to do for your design. If you're super artsy, there's about 100 different designs you can do. I always go with the standard wheat stalks. It's important that you do small scores and then one big long score to help your bread rise. I'm going to be using 2 different Dutch ovens today just to show you some options. I'm going to put some water down each side of the parchment paper just to add some steam while the bread is cooking. We're going to cover this and cook it at 450 degrees for 30 minutes with the lid on and then 15 minutes with the lid off. So I performed my stretch and folds and my last gentle rolls with this second loaf. I am doing the scoring now and I shaped it into a bit more of an oval because I am putting it into an enamel cast iron. I'm adding my water for steam and then putting this in the oven at 450 for 30 minutes and then 15 minutes uncovered. This is loaf number 1 right out of the oven. And loaf number 2. Thank you for watching and please let me know if you give this a try.